Okay, g'day, John. How you going?
Good. How are you doing today, David?
Yeah, really good. Yeah, good. Good to meet you too, John.
Yes, very nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's nice and chilly there at the moment, and snow and all of that kind of stuff.
It is extremely cold here at the moment. We've gotten a lot of snow this week, and yeah, negative 11 Fahrenheit right now outside, which would be, I don't know, in your Celsius world, a negative, quite a bit below zero.
Yeah, I don't think I've even experienced something that cold before in my life.
Yeah, probably around what, negative 20 Celsius or so. I don't
Wow.
know.
Yeah. So, John, how long? Well, by the look of things, you've been a runner pretty much your whole life. Is that right?
Yeah, yep. I ran in high school. I ran cross country and track we have here, so running 5Ks in the fall and half mile, mile, and 2 mile in track in the spring. Yeah, pretty much I've only done running as a sport since seventh grade, so pretty young.
Yeah, because like in the States, I understand pretty much everyone does a sport. And did you choose running, or did your parents tell you, "I want you to be a runner," or how did you choose
Definitely
running?
didn't come from my parents.
Right.
As a little kid, I played a lot of sports, and honestly, I wasn't very good at most of the hand-eye coordination, baseball, basketball, and all those sports, and just kind of tried running, and I was much better at that than the other sports. So just kind of
Yeah,
stuck with that, and enjoyed it.
yeah, very good. So from what I can see, from what I could find on the internet, it looks like your first ultra was in 2008. So do you remember when you first decided that you wanted to head down that ultra path?
Yeah, so after college, I did a couple quicker marathons, trying to improve there, and then yeah, just kind of caught my eye. There's a the first race I did was a 50K, just pretty close to home. So I just want to give it a try as a pretty good pretty a trail 50K. So it was a good learning experience because trail 50K versus a road marathon is you don't want to approach it the same way, and I did, and yeah, didn't go that well, but good learning experience. But nonetheless, got me hooked and just kind of kept escalating from there to 50 mile, 100 mile, and eventually, way down the road and landed in backyards. But yeah, that was quite a while ago, so kind of had a longer path and wasn't nearly as competitive when I started out.
Right. Because I saw you ran the third, you came third in the, I think it was 100 Ks was it 100 Ks in America, or was it 100 miles? You were
Probably
the,
100 miles.
yeah, yeah. So I can imagine you probably ran, well, how fast did you run the marathon back in the day when you were running those races?
Yeah, I think my quickest was 2:57, so
Right.
just under the 3 hour mark.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I understand that you ran a couple of virtual backyard ultras before you actually, like, because of COVID, I understand, and you actually won the quarantine backyard ultra with 51 hours using your treadmill.
Yeah, so back in, I had done a lot of 100 milers and different races, and then in what 2019, I was like, oh, I want to try something new. Saw had seen some of the backyard stuff going on, so I signed up for a backyard that was in person here in Wisconsin in April of 2020, and everybody knows what happened in 2020. So, but it just so happened the first edition of the quarantine backyard was the same exact day as the day I was supposed to do a backyard event here in Wisconsin.
Yeah,
So yeah, the first one I was a more broadcast one, or more people saw it. It had more big names in it, but that one was I ended up I think it was between the 38th and 39th hour. I lay down on my couch to take a nap and didn't get up, and the race is over with the backyard. So
yeah,
um, yeah, in the second edition of it is when my wife babysat my naps, and I woke up, and yeah, and that race ended up winning with 51 yards on my treadmill, which I hope I never have to do again.
yeah. Yeah, I can imagine if you had your couch right next to your treadmill, it would have been pretty easy to go to sleep, like when you started going over that 24-hour mark.
Yep, yep. But the treadmill, yeah, treadmill's not the perfect venue for a running event of that distance. I
Yeah,
don't enjoy running on the treadmill in general.
right.
I'm unless it's icy outside, I'm usually not on the treadmill. So not my first choice, but given the circumstances, it was a lot of fun
Yeah,
how they
yeah.
had those. So,
And so running in a backyard ultra had been on your radar for a little while, but COVID interrupted all that, I guess.
yep, exactly. So I was definitely interested in it already, and just kind of COVID, kind of exploded the sport, and I was kind of part of that. Just kind of that's what was available for those, first 6 months.
Yeah. And I see that the first real life backyard ultra you did was called the Big Hill Bonk Backyard Ultra in 2021. So can you tell me a bit about that race?
Yeah, so the Big Hill Bonk is it's just like an hour drive away from my house, nice and convenient. But it was a silver ticket race that year. So if I won that event, or golden ticket, sorry, they've changed the terms, golden ticket. And so if I won that, I would automatically get to go to Bigs. So that's the one that I was initially planning to do in 2020, but kept getting pushed back. So eventually, once it was held, I got to go race there, and had some pretty good runners in it that year because it was a golden ticket event. But yeah, I was able to. It is a pretty hilly course. It's a mix of road and trail, but it's the same loop day and night. And yeah, it was very hot that race. I'm not good at my Celsius conversion, but it was between up above 80 degrees Fahrenheit the entire race, which is pretty warm. But yeah, just kind of that race. I think that race I only ended up going like 34, 37 yards. I'm not sure exactly how far, but due to the conditions. But yeah, was able to just kind of stick it out in that one, and that's what got me my first ticket to go to Bigs, and kind of started the whole last few years of what I've been focusing on.
Yeah, and as the name implies, Big Hill Bonk. I love that name, by the way. There's a big hill in it, is there?
There is a big hill in it. Yep. So it has some ups and downs the entire time, but right in the middle of the loop there is a big hill that you have to walk up.
Yeah.
So it's pretty steep, and it's a lot longer than anything at Big's course, but yeah, it's just the one kind of big hill.
Yeah, cool. And it looks like you're fully immersed in the backyard ultra scene since then. I mean, apart from an aborted 100 miler I saw you did, they've all you run. They're the only races you've run in since that Big Hill Bonk.
Yeah, so in general, I try not to do too many races. I just enjoy really having those couple of races that I focus on each year usually. Especially now that I've done the backyard, and it's kind of these long events that take more out of my body.
Yeah.
I really like having that one thing to really focus on and kind of train towards. So I know there's other guys that were at Bigs and like within a month were running a marathon again afterwards, and I'm just not one of those people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've enjoyed the format, but then also I like kind of that long build up to it, and then also having plenty of time to rest afterwards and kind of get back into the next cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. Talking about runners who enjoy racing again, I was just watching the live stream of Ehor. He just came first in the Hurt 100. So I was just watching his race into yeah.
Yeah, I still haven't ran more than 30 minutes consecutively since Bigs 2 months ago, or 2.5 months ago at this point. So
yeah.
I had some issues with my leg too, but yeah, in general, I like to take a couple months around the holidays to focus on eating and playing video games instead of running.
Yeah. And if it's going to be so cold at the moment, it's probably a good time to do that. Have a rest and stuff.
Yep. I like to rest up. I mean, I'll run more than I have this year. Usually, I had some issues, with my leg that kind of make me take some extra time off. But yeah, in general, it's nice to keep it low key, and it is kind of fun to get out there, and I have all the cold weather gear to get out there and do some runs when they tell you not to leave your home. But yeah, in general, it's not the worst time of year to have a little bit of less volume.
Yeah, I actually follow. I forget his first name. His surname's Yovachin. You would know him.
Dan.
Yeah, he posted a photo of himself on Instagram, and his whole face was frozen. It was like covered in ice.
Yep. That's normal this time of year. If I go for a run right now, all the sweat immediately freezes. So it's just your face is just covered in ice when you're done.
So after you ran at Bigs for Team USA in 22. I was going to say, it does look like you had a few months of little to no running at all. And from what I saw, I thought maybe you were injured with stress fractures. Is that correct?
Yeah. So in May, or at the beginning of, it would have been the end of April in 22, I got a stress fracture in my heel. So that took me out for a while, and it was then kind of like a, hey, how can I still try to get, work back up and do big? So that's the only race I did in 2022. But yeah, so I ended up being able to start running again, whatnot, until early July, I think, or late June. Just started doing, little run walks, and, was able to just build up as aggressively as I could, but still I had a lot lower training volume in 22, but was able to get to bigs, feeling pretty healthy. And yeah, in 22 ended up going, what I think, 74 yards in that one. So yeah, somehow it all came together, but definitely my overall fitness wasn't nearly as good in 22 when I was there.
And did you come away from that race with stress fractures as well, or were you come away with a clean bill of health?
No, I wasn't feeling very good after that race. My heel was definitely hurting. And in general, I was just wiped out from everything. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, I wasn't too terrible. But yeah, I wanted to take some time to really just focus on. I did some other strength training and a lot of biking. Just kind of get back into things and try to. I pushed the timeline quicker than I probably should have after the first time from the stress fracture. So trying to just add a little bit more healing time in before I start ramping things up.
yeah. And I mean, I think you were the third from the last one standing in that race. But so I mean, you did 74 to qualify for bigs easily. But did you is that what ended that race at 74 for you? The pain in the heel, or what was
No, actually, I was having some pretty severe sleep deprivation issues,
right?
so I did not do good sleeping in 22. I think I estimated I slept about 10 minutes over the 74 hours total.
Wow. Yeah.
So I was getting to the point where I couldn't see straight. I couldn't like feel my feet hitting the ground anymore. So it was, and Biggs is a pretty technical trail course during the daytime. So I wasn't able to keep my senses going and kind of get around the course. So yeah, that was definitely my struggle when I ended my race in 22. It's just a sleep deprivation.
Sure. Were you hallucinating as well, and anything like that?
Absolutely. So it Biggs in the nighttime, you're on just these rural country roads, right? And there's like bushes on the side, and I kept seeing overpasses that I was running underneath of, and there's no overpasses there, I promise.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was definitely seeing a lot of things in 22.
Yeah. So yeah, as we mentioned, that 74 yards you ran that in that race, that easily qualified you for bigs that we just had in 23. But at that stage, were you did you think, yeah, 74, that will get me in, or but because there was still 12 months to go. So, or were you thinking, oh, at line ball?
Yeah, I was really hoping that was going to get me in. Yeah, I was really thinking it would, but I did sign up, or yeah, I was in 22. So yeah, I was kind of banking on the fact that that was going to get me in because I just did a 100 mile, which you notice I had a DNF earlier this year in my 100 mile. But yeah, that's the only thing I put on my plate, just kind of hoping that 74 would get me be good enough to get into bigs this year.
Yeah, yeah. And look, I think at the end, I mean, 55 was the cutoff. So, I mean, you're well and truly, you would have got in with this 63, I think, that you ran at Bigs in 21.
Yep, I think it was 62. I've increased in intervals of 12 every year with my PR. I don't know why.
Yeah, yeah. I've noticed that, like, if you haven't been the last one standing, you've run a PR every time.
Yep, at bigs. Yep.
Yeah, pretty good. So you pretty much had a whole year to prepare for Bigs. So what was your strategy to get to Bigs in as best a shape as possible?
Yeah, so I definitely spent the whole year focused on bigs. Even that 100 mile race wasn't my focus. So really, the whole year was just geared towards ramping up and being in peak shape for bigs. So yeah, did some strength work, and then yeah, just kind of kept the volume a little bit lower over the beginning of the year. And with the entire goal of just making sure that I'm healthy, getting into bigs. And then yeah, I did a lot of things with, sleep ended up ending my 22 race. So kind of working on a lot of things for my sleep strategy and making sure I'm in the best position to get a little bit of rest going into 23 between loops.
Yeah, because I mean, I know Harvey Lewis, he takes his yoga mat to his where he works at school, and he'll sneak in little naps here and there. Like, do you do anything like that where you work or anything like that?
Yeah, so actually I fall asleep super easy all the time other than this race
Right.
until this year I did very well with it. But yeah, prior to like in general, I take a nap at work almost every single day. I can just be sitting up in my office chair and I will just fall asleep and take a 5 minute nap and then be good for the rest of the day. So
Yeah.
yeah, in general, that's a part of what I do every day anyways, those little cat naps. But I just hadn't quite figured out how to kind of get my mind into a place where I can do that during the race.
Yeah. Did you have any key metrics as far as training goes that you wanted to make sure you hit, like a weekly mileage or monthly mileage or elevation or anything like that?
No, I'm not really focused that much on it. I work with a coach, Coach Travis at Personal Peak Fitness. It's in Canada, but he kind of helps me, make sure with all the math and getting everything, lined up and all the periodization. I prefer just focusing on running and not all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I really enjoyed working with him, so he can kind of help get all that, worked up and all the volumes things. So I don't think about the numbers very much, and yeah, there's no like certain like I'm not like that excited when I hit like I'd never hit 100-mile week this year, but
Right.
I don't have any sort of like goals for like that when I'm training.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I mean,
I love my long weekend runs, so that's what I really like building those up. So by the end, I'm running a 40-mile run, on the weekend is my long run. So that's why I really enjoy those long runs. So that's what excites me, and try to get to the point. Once I at least get to the point where I'm running a marathon every weekend, that's when I really enjoy it.
yeah. And I mean, look, I mean, you've obviously found what works best for you because, I mean, you ran the race of your life at Big's running 98. So, I mean, because I compared I mean, to some other runners, they'll run like double the amount that you do. But I was wondering, like, maybe you were like not running as much just to look after your injury or anything like that.
Yeah, that definitely was part of it early in the year. So I did focus a little bit more on doing kind of biking, and then all throughout the year, I was doing my intensity work on the bike instead of running to try to keep myself, a little bit healthier as well, which I think works out well. And but yeah, I definitely had a lower volume due to the kind of issues I had the year before and wanting to not caring what my mileage was early in the year, just trying to peak for bigs there.
Yeah. So you mentioned you've got a coach. I know a lot of runners also do a lot of work on their mindset, and they'll have a mindset coach. So, is that an area you also worked on leading into Bigs, your mindset?
In terms of the actual race mindset, I mean, it's always tough. And this year, actually, I had more ups and downs than usual. But I've usually been pretty good in terms of just focusing on the one lap at a time. That's actually why I like the backyard event. I think for me, it's easier mentally than like I was doing timed events before, like a 48-hour race, and I feel like it's just like a race like that is so daunting, right? So if you get 20 hours into a 48-hour race and you start having issues, your mind starts racing to, oh man, I have 28 hours. What do I have to calculate? What do I have to do? What can I break to still hit my goals? I feel like that format is much tougher, at least from a mental perspective. Where in the backyard, you just focus on 1 hour at a time and make sure that you're putting yourself in a position where you can keep doing 1 more hour. So personally, I think the mindset's better. The part I needed to work on was sleeping. So just calming my mind so that I could fall asleep. And for me, once I fell asleep in the first night a handful of times and I already had more sleep than I got the whole race last year. And once I did that, then I was really just fine because at that point I knew I could do it. I knew I was in a better spot and my mind was calm, and
Yeah.
that just helped me so much this year get a way more sleep.
Yeah. I guess it just would have put your mind at rest. Like, yes, I'm sleeping. It kind of relaxed you, like being able to sleep on that first night.
Yeah, in 2022, like every night I laid down, I was just like anxious, like I need to get sleep, like I need to go to sleep, and that doesn't help you go to sleep.
Yeah. Even on a normal night when you're lying in bed, it doesn't help when you're thinking like that.
Yep.
Yeah. What about so some runners I've spoken to, like Rob Parsons, for example, he went into the race with a mindset of he's not even going to count the loops. going to purposely not even know what loop he's up to. And I know a lot of runners do that. Is that what you did? Like, were you just ignoring what loop you're up to? Or were you kind of like aware?
Yeah, it definitely isn't my focus. I'd have to calculate it. Like I have to look at my watch and see what time of day it is to know what loop I'm on. So it definitely wasn't top of my mind. As you get closer to like the end of the days or end of the nights, I will keep track of like how many, kind of a countdown, right, till I get to switch, because having that day course and night course at Bigs, at least for me, I look forward to both switches very much. By the time I've done 11 day loops, I'm definitely ready for the roads. By the time I've done 13 night loops, I want to be back on the trail. So kind of towards the end, having that countdown is kind of helpful, I feel. But yeah, it definitely isn't the top thing on my mind. Like I said, I'd have to calculate it every time I wanted to know, because it's not something I was really thinking about that much.
Yeah, yeah. And I've noticed that you've got a bit of a different technique with your watch as well. So with me, when I run the backyard, I'll just press start at the start of the race, and then I kind of know what loop I'm up to if I look at my watch, because it will tell me how long I've been running for. But you actually start and stop every loop.
Every loop is a run. So anybody that follows me on Strava gets really annoyed with a million different tracks coming in during my backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just how I've always done it, and I just have a Garmin watch that it doesn't last the whole race anyway. So, yeah, I just will end it, and then once or twice a day, I'll leave it back at the tent and take my Garmin watch from 15 years ago with me and run with that one instead for loop all the other one charges. So, but yeah, I just keep them all separate tracks, and I like to have my pace for the current track, which I know you can do with loops and laps and stuff. But yeah, I've always just restarted it every hour.
Yeah, it is a good strategy for people who don't want to count their loop or know what loop they're up to as well, I guess.
Yep. I don't know. I've never really even thought of doing it the other way. That's just what I've always done. But,
yeah. And I think you had to do it because you would have done it for the quarantine backyard ultra. You had to prove that you'd actually run that distance. Is that probably how you had to do it for that one, for those first?
Exactly. Yep. So for the backyard ultra, I had to take a picture of my treadmill every hour when I finished.
Yeah.
And then that gets up, and then I have to upload that to Strava whenever convenient. So sometime during the next loop, usually I would, be sitting with my phone, or I'd be walking, in one of my walk breaks on the treadmill. I'd just have to enter a Strava post with a picture of my treadmill from the previous loop.
Yeah, yeah. So what kind of things like were going through your head? Like, did you have any mantras that you were like you would repeat to yourself in your mind to keep yourself going when things were tough?
No, I mean, I really just focus on the little things, right? Especially, those night loops get tough as you get into the third and fourth nights. So I actually paired up with Harvey Lewis, and we were running shoulder to shoulder the entire third and fourth nights pretty much. So we were just kind of focused on, hey, let's run this little bit, let's walk this little bit. And like, well, I don't know, we talk a little bit, but like people are like, oh, you spent that much time with Harvey, what'd you talk about? And we talk about running and how far we're going to go until we start walking again. And like this, there's some crazy things coming out of our mouths because we're sleep deprived and everything. But for the most part, yeah, just as weird as it sounds, just focusing on running the little bits at a time. And that's kind of how I've always been with running. So I don't use music when I run, even if I'm going on a 5-hour run by myself at home. I just like to be out there kind of with my thoughts and just mostly thinking about running while I'm out there.
Yeah, cool. Because Biggs was it was an amazing race with so many amazing runners from all over the world. Were there any particular runners that you hadn't met before that you were excited to meet and excited to run with?
Yeah, so we kind of break into, right? So there's some folks like Phil Gore. I was never around Phil Gore, right? He's just running quicker than me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I definitely enjoyed running. I ran with Rob and Aaron from Australia, and both those guys are just so fun and chatty. Almost all the Australians, right, are just seem to be very chatty people, so they're always fun to be around. But I don't know if there's like an individual person I was looking forward to. I just enjoyed the company, whoever I was around, right? So it definitely adds a very fun aspect to the race where I get to meet all these people that I've right? You see all these people in Facebook and all the, like doing all the, following all the big races, and then everybody kind of gets to come together and enjoy this race. And you realize just everybody's out there kind of with the same goals, right? And kind of just in the backyard, it's such a fun race where you get to start every loop together. And it's just such a social. It's really not that competitive until you're getting down to the last few people. It's just everybody trying to go as long as they could. So yeah, it's just awesome experience to be able to kind of spend so much time chatting with people from all around the world.
Yeah. And looking around, like especially at the start of the race, was it kind of like was there a different feeling to different backyard ultras? Like was there like electricity in the air, like a bit of an aura just because of the occasion and all the runners who were there?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. So there's no electricity for the excitement of it, but at the same time, it's almost kind of boring at the start because at a normal backyard, you have people dropping at 2 yards in, 4 yards in, 6 yards in, and that number keeps decreasing over time. At Bigs, I mean, nobody's planning to bail before 48 hours for sure. Some things happen to force people out, but that is just kind of the warm up period, right? Where like not much is happening the first 48 hours. So it's positive. That's where I did a lot of the chatting with a lot of different folks. You're not really, you're just, most people are just still having a good time, not having to focus too much yet. But yeah, at the same time, it's kind of weird. It's almost at the beginning, it's very electric, and then you just get into this like period of like 40 hours where nothing much is happening in the race. You're just kind of going through the routines of getting around the course.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you've looked at your times after the race and just looked into it very much, but I've looked at your times that you were running a little bit, and I noticed that your first night was easily stood out as your fastest period of the race. Was that part of the plan, or part of a plan, or just the way things worked out?
Just kind of how it works out. Like even, I try to run at, a conservative pace, but also I want to be at an efficient pace, right? So whatever feels, good for the body. I don't want to be slowing down more than what feels like it's the most efficient pace for me, right? So if I can get a little bit more rest, that's great, without pushing my body. So that's just the reason why the first night's a little bit quicker. Everything's so easy and so loose. It just kind of ends up being a little bit quicker than the other nights, but still comparative to the field, I'm definitely towards the slower end of lap times throughout the whole race.
Mm. And I noticed that the third day stands out because every loop was 55 minutes was actually the fastest loop you did on the third day. Every other loop was slower than that. So was something going on, or was that part of the plan?
Yeah, it wasn't the plan going in, but that's when me and Harvey teamed up, and we just got into a rhythm of kind of doing our run walks, right? And that's where it landed, is comfortable doing it. And we got in, with not much time left. But like I said, I was able to, even on those loops, I was able to fall asleep. As long as I got in before 57, pretty much, I was able to get like a minute of sleep or so at least, which doesn't sound like much, but even just getting like 1 minute sleep. I know folks that like, you get tired in the afternoon, you sit down, you start to like nod off, you fall asleep for a minute, then you wake up and you just feel like rejuvenated a little bit. It's just kind of like that over and over again. So yeah, it was working for us. So didn't decide to change anything. And having somebody to run with at that point in the race is pretty beneficial as well.
Yeah. So from my experience, when I've run at backyard ultras, usually when runners start running around that 57-minute mark, it's a sign that they're about to drop. But the thing at Bigs is all these runners were just kept on going and going and going, even if they were coming in kind of late. So was that new for you as well? Or is that kind of how, because you've run at Bigs a few times, is that how it usually is?
Yeah, it can be like that, but I think definitely we were going a little bit slower than I have in the past. But yeah, I feel like Harvey and me were kind of that third night was a lot of fun because we were almost like the sweepers on the course, right? Like once you got behind us, we knew, some people were in trouble. Yeah. But then those people were just joining us. Yeah. It's like, I don't know if you've seen like the pictures, but there's pictures of like the third morning, the sun coming up and just like a group of us, right? So that was like what this group had kind of formed into by the morning. Everybody just trying to get through that third night. And there's like a picture of like 8 or 9 of us just like emerging in the dawn, right? And so that's what that picture was really, which was, it's mostly Harvey. Harvey's just like, oh, come on, you got to join us. You got to get through this third night. So just kind of pulling people along with us and just do our, run and walk with us, and you'll finish the loop and line up for the next one.
Yeah. Something that a lot of runners commented on, and a lot of I noticed as well, is how dusty the trail was. And it was causing runners to have blood noses and other irritations and things like that. And because you were experienced at Biggs, this was your third time running there, how did the amount of dust compare to the previous times you'd run there?
Yeah, it wasn't even close. So it had rained a little bit. I think each of the previous 2 years it rained at some point in the race. But it had been so dry this year. It was pretty terrible from my perspective. I thought it was really bad. And I didn't realize how bad it was until after the race, because I had a cough for like 2 weeks after the race, and I had a couple of nosebleeds during the race. And yeah, I hope it's not like that next year, because it was pretty rough breathing in that dust. And I didn't really notice it till a few days in, but the entire every time you stop your foot on that trail, it's like a cloud of dust, and you have everybody out there doing that, and you're running pretty close to other people usually, and yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah, especially on those first couple of days when there was like 70 odd runners kicking up all that dust.
Yeah, yep. And it just didn't get it better as the race went on, with all the foot traffic in there. It's just all that loose dirt, this just dusty dirt sitting on the top of the trail. It was pretty bad out there.
Yeah. Well, what type of irritations did it cause you? Did you get a blood nose or anything like that during the night?
So I had a couple bloody noses, which I've gotten a bloody nose every year at Biggs. It's just kind of something that happens to me. I just have issues with bloody noses, but yeah, this year was definitely worse. And usually I've only noticed myself getting one. And this year, like, I don't know, it seems like half the people that were left on the third day were getting bloody noses.
Yeah. 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 Like, I mean, you would have noticed or seen the footage, I'm guessing, of Harvey Lewis. He had blood all over the front.
Oh yeah, I was running next to him, and he's just like, he's got facial hair, right? And it's just like all caked in blood, and
yeah,
it looked pretty gnarly.
Yeah, so you mentioned that the sleep is a big reason why you think you've improved, why you improved on that performance. And on the live stream, have you watched much of the live stream back, by the way?
I have not actually. It's on my list. At some point, if I do a long treadmill run, it's got something to watch at least. But no, I haven't really. I watched back the last hour of my race, right, and then the finish with Harvey.
Yeah, because on the live stream you actually had a conversation with Laz, and you mentioned to him how much better you slept at this race than you did with Team USA, and I was wondering, do you use caffeine? Most runners will have a caffeine strategy. Do you have a caffeine strategy or anything like that?
My strategy this year was not to use much caffeine.
Right. Yeah.
So I usually don't consume caffeine on like a daily basis. Very little. I'll have a cup of green tea, which has not much caffeine in it. Yeah. So yeah, my strategy this year was to try to avoid the caffeine. Hopefully I can sleep. I don't need the caffeine to keep me awake, and then that'll make me sleep better, and I'll just get into a better cycle than I did last year. So that was part of it. I don't really, since my body's not used to it, I was just trying to avoid it and seeing if I could get through it. I did have little bits of caffeine, but very, very little.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you did, was it in like the form of like Coca-Cola or what?
So I was actually had little like breath mints that have little bits of caffeine in it. So it is very, very low doses, but yeah, just something more of a mental thing, right? Like I really feel like I'm that bad in the middle of the night, can just chomp a few mints down that don't have much caffeine, but it gives you a little mental lift up.
Yeah, and I can imagine that would kind of like feel nice in your mouth as well, because you know how sometimes your mouth feels funny when you've been running for that long, and just
oh yeah, it takes a while for the mouth to recover after these races. All that sugar and salt and everything going through. Oh yeah, definitely have sores in my mouth every time I finish. So yeah, but yeah, it's nice to the mint feeling itself, even without the caffeine, can give you a little bit of little bit of pick me up in your head.
Yeah, sure. I had Frank the Tank on the podcast a few weeks ago, and did you run with him much?
A little bit towards the end when it was getting, he was also doing some pretty slow loops for a while towards the end,
Yeah,
during the nighttime. So yeah, I was around him a little bit.
yeah. He's a funny guy, and yeah. So he ran 97 yards, and I asked him if he thought he would have made 100 if the race stayed, like if he didn't switch to the trail, if it stayed on the road, would have he made it to 100? And he said yes. What do you reckon you would have made it to 100 if you stayed?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had to stop because I was having issues with my leg. I couldn't really bend my ankle for a while, but then my knee started to lock up. Which on the road you can just kind of power through, right? You can just like force your legs, one step in front of the other. And once you get on the trail, you have to have some movement. You have to be able to, to have some agility to get around that course. And I just wasn't at the I couldn't get around the course anymore with my leg just was like all locking up. So I feel like if I was on the road, I could have push through a few more loops probably.
Yeah. And that's something that I picked up on the live stream too. Like it was obvious that you were feeling, it was your right leg, I believe.
Yep.
And so was that something you were dealing with for a while, or did it just explode on that trail?
No, so yeah, it started the third night is when I started having issues down like the front of my shin towards my ankle. So it was angry for quite a while. And yeah, it was extremely swollen by the time I finished. But yeah, it was just getting worse and worse. And that, like I said, I just kept losing more and more mobility in my ankle. I couldn't bend the ankle anymore, which like I said, on the road you can push through, but once you start not having being able to bend your leg, those trail loops that are pretty technical get pretty tough.
Yeah. When I know some runners do, some runners don't. Do you like take Panadol or anything like that when you're feeling a lot of pain somewhere in your body? Like, did you take Panadol or anything like that?
No, I don't take any pain medicine usually.
Yeah.
I'm not I don't in general, I try not to do too much of that stuff. And I have stomach issues like with, I'm not sure what the medicine was you referenced, but Motrin or ibuprofen. I don't know if that's a normal in Australia, but like the anti-inflammatories, I don't really like to take them unless I really need to.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Panadol is paracetamol. I'm not sure if you know what that is.
I think it's different names here in the States.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So when it was just you and Harvey left out of the US runners, did it cross your mind that like if I outlast this guy, like in the 90s, were you thinking if I outlast Harvey here, I'll be the national record holder? Was that
Yeah,
kind
I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about that for
of
sure.
yeah,
I was still focused on just running a lap at a time, and I know that Harvey also was not planning on stopping. But yeah, I'd be lying if I told you that wasn't in my mind once we hit the national record.
yeah, yeah. And what about reaching 100? Were you thinking about that hitting that mark while you were out there as well?
Um, Maybe in the early '90s I still was, but once I got to those late '90s, and I was just really I was so focused on just trying to get through each lap, right? Like when I came that first loop on the fifth day, I guess, is when I was super focused, super like in the mindset of I have to like run almost as hard as I can to like get around this trail course. So I wasn't thinking about numbers at that point. I was just trying to get out as many laps as I could.
Yeah. And leading into the race, had you set yourself any goals or anything like that? Or was it just like go till I just can't go anymore?
Yeah, I mean that's one of my favorite parts about the backyard too. Is you don't really need goals. I think I call them milestones along the way, right? So I'd be lying if I said I didn't know what the American national record was, or what my PR is, and what the biggest record, course record, and all that is. But at the same time, yeah, it's just my goal going into this race is to run until I physically can't finish a loop, or I'm the world champion. So those were really my goal was to hit one of those two things. Because this was the first year that I actually timed out on a loop. So that was one of my goals, is to make sure that I am out there, I'm starting every loop, and then end of my race is when I literally can't physically get around the course.
So in the other races, when you weren't the last one standing, did you just stop in the chair? Did you?
No, so at Biggs, right, you have that, there's like the out and back that you
Yeah.
have to do before you go out on the trail loop. So in 22, that's when I was having all the sleep deprivation issues, and I like was just totally loopy and out of it. And so by the time I got back from the out and back, I didn't continue on to the trail. And then the year before is just a night loop where I had gone out, and before I got to the 1K mark, I was already just at a point where I had in my head that I couldn't finish that loop, so I just turned around and came back.
Right, sure. So when you finished on 98 and you looked at the runners who were left, Harvey Lewis is there. Did you think at that point in time that were you expecting Harvey Lewis to be the last one standing, or did you think there would be someone else?
Yeah, honestly, I thought it was just a toss up at that point. So Harvey definitely didn't, and there were points where he was really struggling. I was curious how the night was going to go, and he didn't have to go through. He only had to do one more night loop, so that was fine. But he did better on the fourth night. But up until the fourth night, and if you've seen, I don't know, he's talked about in some of his podcasts, but he didn't sleep really. So he was having a really hard time sleeping, and he didn't sleep even the night before the race. Well, I think he only got a few hours of sleep, so he was having some serious sleepy issues out on those night loops. So yeah, I know he's just such a strong-minded person, right? To like get around, when he's, regardless of how he's feeling. But yeah, I'll probably just guess it was a toss-up at that point as to who would keep going.
Yeah.
There were a few people that were kind of barely hanging on at that point, but yeah, I would have put Harvey and Eeyore and some of the others that were kind of consistently still going around at the same pace, equal chances probably at that point.
Yeah, sure. I'm not. Oh, have you watched the documentary on YouTube of the most recent Masters race at Dead Cow Gully with Harvey Lewis on it?
I've watched. Yeah, I think I did watch. I watched interviews afterwards. Yeah, I don't know if that's the one, but interviews with Harvey and I think Phil after that race.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, you might know that Harvey Lewis, he ran at Dead Cow Gully in Australia, and they made a documentary about it. It was released in the week leading into Biggs, and yeah, it's really good. And the reason why I ask is because you've run with Harvey at least 3 times in backyard ultras.
Yep.
And you may have heard him on those interviews you mentioned. He uses computer games as an analogy to talk about his character, and he goes into races as a new character. And I was wondering if you thought he looked like a new character compared to the other times you've raced with him.
Yeah, no, I mean Harvey's a character, but no, I think no, I didn't really notice any big difference. Sometimes he'll have he likes to also relate like different spirit animals to each race, right? So like he'll just give out yells, and he's also infamous at Biggs for like once in a while, like the third or fourth night, he'll just like sprint out of the starting corral, right? Yeah. So it's like the third night, everybody's like limping to like get going on the loop, are all tight, and Harvey just sprints. Right. And he just like sprints the first like 100 meters of it, which is just crazy, crazy to me. But yeah, so he does that once in a while. But yeah, he always has different. He definitely is more into the mantras and like different things, like getting, focusing on different like more abstract things while he's out there. Yeah. I'm just more kind of logically focused on kind of what I'm doing.
Yeah, sure thing. So how did you pull up after the race? Like, did you check? Do you know what happened to your leg? What was wrong with it? Like, were you injured, or was it just, are you better now? Or
yeah, I think I'm pretty much healed now, but it took a long time. So I just had some inflammation in the tendon between the the tibia and fibula down there, the 2 different bones, right? So that tendon in between there, just from all the smashing on the ground, like every time you impact, right, you're like foot's going into your leg bones, pushing your leg bones apart there. And it's pretty much like if I had a high ankle sprain, that tendon was just all angry. But it lasted a long time. So like it took about a month probably before I was really like walking even normal and like having pain-free walking. So that's where like I think it's crazy that like, Harvey a month later was,
Yeah.
already ramping up for another race. But
Yeah.
yeah, for me it was rough going for a long time. My is tough. I definitely had a gimp in my step for 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Harvey, he ran to work like the next day or something after
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. I am just hobbling around the 100 meters I have to walk from my car to my desk and didn't want to move anymore after that.
Yeah. Is it something that you've ever experienced before, that particular pain or injury?
Nope, I haven't at all actually. And all of my issues over the last couple of years have all been in my left leg, and for some reason this year was my right leg. So it's just eventually something breaks down, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just where the pain was this year. I mean, some of it might have been. So I actually had a really rough go in this race around 42 hours in. I was actually to the point where I didn't know if I was going to go much longer because I was starting to get some of that pain in my heel that I had the stress fracture from last year, which just immediately put me in a bad mental spot. But thankfully, my wife Kendra is my crew person. She's she's level headed, got me just focusing on each loop. But I eventually ended up putting some inserts in my shoes that I don't usually run with, which helped my heel like, a lot. That pain just went away. But then my right leg, I don't know if that could have contributed to it as well. Then I ended up running another 200 miles with an insert in my shoe that I don't usually run with. So it kind of threw everything off a little bit.
Yeah. Where you work, are there other ultra runners there, or are you like the only one?
No, yeah, I work at a large company. We have like 14,000 people, and there's a good amount of there's a handful of ultra runners there.
Oh, that's
Another runner that runs a whole bunch of 200-mile races. So there's some folks around.
oh yeah, oh that's good. Yeah, because where I work, there's no one, and everyone thinks I'm crazy.
Yeah, I work at a big enough company that there's bound to be other crazy people.
Yeah. So I know that a lot of runners are attracted to backyard ultras because they see it as a way into bigs, and if they win bigs, then it's their ticket to running at the Barkley Marathons. Do, is the Barkley Marathons a type of race that you're interested in, or something that you're driven to make one day?
Absolutely not. That is not my style of race.
Yeah.
I'm a planner. I like to like get in my head of how everything's gonna go, right? And then I, have to be able to change and go with what happens. But Barkley Marathon, because you don't even know the course, and no, I like to focus on running. That's just not my jam. I like to be able to zone out and just run. So I don't think Barkley Marathon is anything. Even if I were to win bigs, I'm sorry, I wouldn't go do it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I'm pretty sure that the 98 yards is enough to secure your spot at Bigs next year in 2025. Is that the plan to go back?
Yeah, we'll see. I was originally not expecting to go 2024 because that's my wife turns 40 during the race.
Oh, okay.
But she told me we can celebrate another time and go. So we'll see. Might end up still going here in 2024 at least, but 2025 is so far away. It's hard to know. There's other running goals out there too, and Bigs takes all my focus. So gotta evaluate at the beginning of each year if that's really what's going to drive me and what I want to focus on, because if it's not what is going to excite me that year, I'm not going to do it. But last few years, it's just been so much fun. I've really enjoyed it, and I think the team year this year I'll most likely do it. The team year, I mean, I like the individual year, but the team year just has a whole different vibe to it. Where running with a lot of runners that I already I spent a lot of time with, and also just like the team atmosphere of trying to get everybody through every single loop is just amazing at that team year. So it's gonna be hard to pass that up, but we'll see for 2025.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned your wife's birthday. She was actually crewing for you during her birthday at Biggs just recently. Is that right?
Yep, this year also spanned her birthday. So yeah, she's a trooper. She's pretty dedicated to it as well. She stays there the entire race and doesn't get more than 30 minutes of sleep the entire race at a time either. So yeah, she's been there. I couldn't do this without her. So yeah, she stuck it out. Camping isn't really what she would usually pick to do on her birthday, but camping out in that tent with a whole bunch of other people. So, but no, yeah, she's done it, and I have to make up for it after or before the race.
Yeah. So you did mention Bigs next year, and as we mentioned before, like in all your backyard ultras so far, if you haven't been the last one standing, you've run a PR. And now you've run 98 yards and gotten so close to 100. I can imagine looking at it that you could be looking at it in two different ways. The first is that it makes you hungry to hit that 100 mark, and because you got so close and you know you can do it. But the other is just the thought of having to go through 98 hours again just to reach your PB is just a mental drainer. Like I know some people who've PBs in the 30, like 35, 36, and it just mentally drains them to thinking about having to go through that again just to get their PB. So how do you feel about it now doing it again?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think it would be mentally draining for me because really like I said, my goal every race is just to run till I can't run anymore. I'm the last person. So even next year, right, the goal is going to be to run until I physically can't get around the loop or I'm the national champion. So that'll be the goal going into next year. So sure, like I said, it's milestones along the way. If I hit, get above the 98, that's awesome. But and also next year has the additional goal of, helping the team, right? Get to see if we can if US team can win it. So yeah, I don't think it'll really weigh on me that much. Like I said, I'm usually pretty focused on one week at a time in the backyard.
Yeah. And because you've got so close to 100, does it make you want to hit it?
It'd be nice to, but I don't know. Like this year, it just wasn't happening, right? Like that's what people like ask me. Like you were so close to 100, why did you stop? Like I couldn't finish that loop. That's why I stopped. Like there wasn't a choice. Like 98 is a good number. I'm gonna stop here. So that's why I think that's why it doesn't really isn't mental thing for me. And if I hit 100, because that's how far I could go, that's awesome. But I just want to make sure, yeah, every backyard I'm focused on just going until my body physically can't. So try to come back a little stronger next year physically, and hopefully that can help me go a little further.
Yeah. With the backyard ultras, like you would know, like they're growing so popular. Yeah, I mean, they're growing so fast, and there's quite a few bigger ones. There's not just, I mean, Biggs is the biggest, but there's other ones held around the world now, like Race of Champions in Germany, Suffolk in the UK. There's the Masters in Australia. Are you tempted to travel overseas to run in one day?
I'd love to, but I don't know. I don't want to spend all my vacation running. I have a family. My wife already is a good sport coming along and being such good support for me that we'll probably spend our vacations doing vacation things. But I don't know. Even with Tennessee already takes for my work schedule. I can only take so many days off. So if I'm doing one, I could maybe do one. Pretty much that one race a year where it takes that much time is about my limit for what I'm going to do. So we'll see, maybe someday. But also, like I said, we'll see where backyard goes. But there's other goals still in my mind of other races that I'd like to focus on at some point. So it might not be backyard every single year the rest of my good running days.
Yeah. So at the moment, the world record's 108. Do you have any idea of what you think is going to happen with the world record? Do you reckon that will stay at 108 for a while, or what do you expect to happen?
It's going to keep going up is my expectation here. I mean, I don't know why. Eventually, maybe it'll slow down and won't go up so much every year, but yeah, I feel like it's just going to keep going. So Harvey seemed like he could keep going at the end there, and there's going to be somebody else. It's going to be a couple folks that are, I don't know. I mean, it could be before Biggs next year. I don't know, or before the World Championship next year. Somebody's going to do it, or if it doesn't before then, I would expect there's going to be a new world record next year during the team championships.
Yeah.
So it'll keep going. I don't know where the limit is one day. Eventually, it gets to. I think the sleep, right, is the main limiting factor there. At some point, if you can, I mean, if you're on a course where a faster course where you can get more sleep, then sure, maybe the thing can last 6 or 7 days at some point. But I don't know, it's tough.
Yeah. I can imagine that the team champs this year, Belgium and Japan, will be hard to beat. And it wouldn't surprise me if they go close to beating the world record.
Yep.
And
yeah, I definitely think so.
Yeah.
It's possible in the US. I mean, that's what kind of Harvey spoke to. Like he didn't think it was possible to set the new world record on the big course, but it happened. So
Yeah.
I mean, we can go far there. But yeah, I think around the world it's gonna happen somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I think it's an amazing it shows how strong the American team is that they actually won the team champs last year on that big course, on such a hard course, when you're up against countries like Belgium who pick a flat course, but you're running on that trail like half the time.
Yeah, I mean I think definitely there's some part to that, but also I don't know. I haven't ran that many hours on a course where you're running the same course every hour too. Like I said, like I do look forward to the trail. The trail makes it harder, but at the same time, it is nice to have like a changing course, right?
Yeah.
Just from a mental perspective, having something to look forward to, every 11 to 13 hours. So, yeah, I think there definitely is an aspect of that, but also around the world, all the teams are getting better every year. So I think, US last time we just from top to bottom, we all, we had just a solid group of runners all the way around. So that's why by the time it got to 60 hours into the race, like we had quite a lead. But I'm not so sure that's going to be the case going forward because just every country keeps getting stronger.
Yeah. Yeah. So you did mention you've got other goals and races that you want to do as well. So what races do you have planned over the next 12 months?
Yeah, so really I just have 2 races the next 12 months. So I'm planning to do bigs again. And then before that, I just like to do something in the springtime. So I'm not 100% set on what I'm doing yet, but there's like a local like last man standing race here. It's not backyard, but it's like every 20 minutes you have to run like this hilly course.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's other like 100-milers or things. So I'm not completely set yet, but I'll probably just do one smaller race in May or June, and then again and do bigs in October. So that'll probably be my entire racing schedule next year.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good. And I like to end each podcast asking my guests for their 3 backyard ultra tips. So what would your advice be to someone who wants to do really well in a backyard ultra? What would your 3 tips be?
I think the first tip would be not to look forward too much. Like focus on the moment, focus on your hour and what you need to maybe, how you can line yourself up for the next 1 or 2 hours to be successful. I think there's a lot of people that I think it's crazy. You're out there on the course and you're in, you still have a couple of day loops left and they're talking about how I don't think I can make it through the end of the night. Like, why are you thinking about the end of the night? Just think about whether you can finish the next couple hours. So I think that's kind of the main thing, or probably the top tip that I give folks. Other than that, yeah, just kind of, I think for me this year, a big thing was just kind of relaxing, just enjoying it. And when you have kind of I've told my wife, like I've noticed over the last couple of years, I think the trait that's actually the most beneficial to a backyard runner is being optimistic. Like not your physical, like just your mental, just like, especially like you see it in Harvey when he talks, right? He's just like this overly positive guy, always looking for the positive. And I think to be successful in a sport like this, you just have to be an optimistic, positive person and keep that positive mindset going. That's just so huge. And I don't know, 3rd tip. I don't know, just I think being open to trying different things during the race that just kind of no matter how things are going, just kind of focusing on what, if I have something that wrong that's going on, just see, is there something I can do to improve it over the next hour, right? And then keep going. So kind of along the same vein of not kind of focusing on the entire race and just focusing on what's going on right now. But like in my race where I had the heel issues of 42 hours, just kind of focusing on, okay, can I try something a little different this loop, see if it helps? Just get through the loop and then do that again and again. So anytime you're having issues, just kind of focusing on those things.
Yeah, nice. As far as the positivity goes, a really, really good example of someone who's really positive and really great run is Courtney Dauwalter. She's like one of the most positive got one of the most positive attitudes of anyone I follow.
Yep.
Yeah,
definitely agree. And even she was the first year I was at Big, she was there, and she's definitely like one of the most positive people out there, like giving everybody encouraging everybody as they're out there when you pass by each other. Like, she's definitely one of the more positive runners out there. But there's a lot of them in the backyard, right? Like I said, I think to be really successful, you have to have at least part of that in you. But there's just so many people out there giving each other positivity and spreading around. And usually the person spreading it is the one that's got the best mindset, right? So it's just contagious out there.
Yeah, I saw she was talking about how, I think it might have been UTMB. She was repeating in her mind, robot, to keep herself going, pretending she was a robot, I guess. And now she's brought out a clothing line with a picture of a robot on it. It's pretty cool.
Very nice.
Yeah. Look, Jon, thanks heaps for coming on to the podcast. It's been really good to meet you and to hear all about your backyard journey. I'm really looking forward to following your races that you've got coming up and to see how much further you can go.
Yeah, thanks, David. It's been fun chatting with you. Always like to chat running with anybody.
Yeah, awesome. Well, have a good day. Hope. Are you going to head out in the cold? Just stay indoors all day, or?
Not so sure today. Yesterday I had to spend almost 3 hours snow blowing and snow shoveling, so that was my workout. So we'll see today if I venture out in the cold.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Well, enjoy your day, whatever you do, and have a good one.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Jon. If you've enjoyed this podcast, it would be awesome if you could share, comment, like, subscribe, all of that. If you've got any feedback, shoot me a message. Hope you have a great day. See ya.